This is the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
Americans for Prosperity, other good groups like this, the grassroots members being very, very engaged and energized.
A big win for Palin-endorsed Doug Ducey in Arizona. Our guest today does it all. She's a doctor, a mom, and a tremendous writer. Fresh off the AFP Dream Summit in Texas, Dr. Melissa Clouthier is here. A new addition to the Palin family arrives, and prayers for Joan Rivers. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson is coming up from Virginia, and just ahead our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman of Missouri. Doug Ducey is the Republican nominee for governor in Arizona. The Cold Stone Creamery head honcho won his primary this past week after being endorsed by Sarah Palin. Palin congratulated Ducey, saying, quote, "The combination of his conservative leadership skills and small business experience will be the right recipe for Arizona," unquote. Right now, we welcome in a great patriot from the Lone Star State. She is a doctor, a mom, and a writer, and she just attended the big Americans for Prosperity event this past weekend. Dr. Melissa Clouthier, welcome to the Palin Update on Mama Grizzly Radio. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks so much for being here. And, let's give folks a little background on you first. First, what you do professionally, and then also what you do really on a daily basis as a great American here with some of your writings.
Well, I'm professionally trained as a chiropractor, and I do still see some patients, but I now have a digital communications company and work with grassroots clients mostly, and, of course, blog and activist stuff, which everybody sees. So sees me on Twitter, and I do that every day.
You know, as a person in the medical profession here, you're a chiropractor, you must have an appreciation for, I guess, Sarah Palin's appreciation for practicing. I mean, you see who she's endorsed, Dr. Bob Johnson this year, and then she also helped get Dr. Paul Gosar, who's a dentist out of Arizona, elected. She helped get Dr. Ted Yoho, a veterinarian out of Florida, elected. So you can see from Sarah Palin, she definitely has that appreciation for what you all do. And also, I think she knows that people who are in the field really feel what Obamacare is all about.
Well, almost universally, Obamacare is hated by doctors, and I can see why Obamacare activated so many of them to get politically, going, because it's terrible for their patients. It's terrible for the doctors. It's terrible for the economy. There's so many ways it's terrible, and doctors see it firsthand every day.
Yeah, and I think that also opens the eyes of maybe people who aren't informed, and when they hear someone who is a doctor and they can trust them and say, wait a minute, I think that this person really knows what's going on, then they say, oh, wow, maybe this everything free stuff isn't so great.
Right. Well, that, like Bill Whittle said at the conference this weekend, he said if there was such a thing as free health care, he'd be for it. But there is no such thing as free health care.
Exactly.
So,
now, speaking of a conference, you were at a big event this past weekend, the Dream Summit in Texas. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was about?
Well, Americans for Prosperity has been around for quite a long time, and every year they have an annual summit where they bring in speakers and activists from all over the country. And this was one of the more successful ones. There were 3,300 people. They sold out and oversold. People were still wanting to come at the last minute. We had over 1,000 Texans at the summit, and there just was so many people. And I have to say, Kevin, because I've been to a bazillion conferences over the years, from CPAC to everything, and I finally feel like the energy amongst the grassroots has turned. People have been very discouraged and sad for a long time, and the energy was really good at this conference and really vibrant. And I don't know if that's because Texas is doing well, and as bad as the country is doing, Texas is like a little bit of a bubble and a haven. But I tend to think it's because people are feeling more optimistic. And so it was a really good vibe for the first time in a long time. I was excited about that.
Well, that's great to hear. And, I've always said, too, lately, when you talk to people one-on-one, you'll have people who you'll find out have voted for Obama perhaps twice. Yet if you take his name out of it and just talk as a person, talk about issues and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Well, they'll get 7 out of 10 right against what Obama believes, yet he's still got these votes, and because of the apathy and because of groups who voted who don't normally vote, and because of Beyonce and the whole 9 yards. So it gets a little frustrating from that standpoint. But then when you talk to people and are able to communicate that, and I think that's something that we've been lacking from the conservative side. Why I'm such a Governor Palin supporter too, because I think she speaks to people in the way that people speak in their homes and in their churches and schools and communities, and really like a real person, in other words, not a teleprompter reader.
Well, I agree with you. Now, the interesting thing that I've noticed, I don't know if you have, but just in the last couple months, I have a couple liberal friends who are ashamed of voting for President Obama, and it's just now where they're like, what have I done? And I didn't think it was going to be this way, and he said he was going to be different. And so where you're right, talking issues, people agree with you, and they do, and that was true in 2008. But now I'm finally seeing people turning on the president himself and saying, it used to be if you said the word Obama, you better not say anything negative. And now it's kind of like, well, yeah, I think he's not a very good president. So that's at least a little bit vindicating,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good point. And I think that also you're seeing Democrats who know that he's a lame duck now, and they're worried about their own hide, so they're going to try to distance themselves a little bit. And you also see people seeing that the media is trying to take a few shots at him, too. But I think we have to watch out about that, too, because you could just see this coming, whether it's Hillary Clinton or whoever the nominee may be in a couple of years, and we have much larger fish to fry here in 2014 with this very important election coming up with the Senate in the balance. But if you do look ahead to 2016, you know what they're going to do. They're going to try to take these shots, if you will, quote unquote, at Obama now, after all is said and done, to kind of say, oh, well, now we realize, but Hillary's really good, and she should have won in 2008. So I think I don't know if people are going to buy it, but I could really see that be, the thing they're starting to drum up.
Oh, there's no question. In fact, that point is something that I made this last week on Twitter. I was like, beware of the people turning on Obama, because the solution isn't going to be somebody from the GOP. The solution is Hillary Clinton. So this is just teeing things up. And I even said that about this whole we don't have a strategy thing. And I said, guess who's going to have a strategy? That will be Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
And so all of these people sitting there and going, oh, Obama's just a terrible president. But, Hillary Clinton, she has a strategy. And look at, she's hawkish and blah, blah, blah. So what you're saying is absolutely true. And at this point, it's teeing up the Democrats. So, it's kind of like President Obama picked Joe Biden, who's quite possibly one of the dullest men who's ever been in the office, to make him look good. The dumber Obama is at this point, the better Hillary Clinton looks, because she's not so bright and shiny herself. So,
Right. Well, we always have those other candidates, though, like you said, like Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren. So there's a lot of great top candidates out there for us to look at. That's why elections around Halloween time. It's very scary sometimes. Now, you've really covered Governor Palin and looked at a lot of things she's done, and I know you wrote some great book reviews about some of her books in the past. What do you think of the governor right now and the role she's taken as far as how she's out there, this coveted endorsement? You don't need backing for this because we all know it's true, but when you hear guys like Jim DeMint and Ted Cruz say it's the number one endorsement out there, it really adds teeth to that. You also see what she does through social media, through her Facebook and Twitter. Nobody can generate so much buzz by just a couple of comments, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter, and now with her SarahPalinChannel.com. What do you think of the role she's taken, and could anybody else do this? Because it's very unique. People are listening to someone like her that has such a following.